Wait, no, you forgot the finger.
Oh, the pointer.
So, good morning and welcome, right? Where are we? Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville. And happy Father's Day. And it's interesting, Father's Day. I wanted to talk about energies and frequencies today. And it really dovetails right into what Jesus spoke about. Jesus used a metaphor of Father to explain the Holy Spirit or God. And it was a very, very poignant metaphor 2,000 years ago. And I think it's kind of lost in the translation today. And back then, totally different community. The father was kind of like the tribe leader. The father was the manager of the family wealth, the family strategies. If you needed something, you went to the father. And yes, it was a very patriarchal culture back then because the father ran things. So we have to leave our world behind and go back there to understand the metaphor of what was being shared. So if you needed something, the father, I'll get it. Thank you. The father was the one to talk to. And if you needed to understand something, the father was the one to talk to. And generally, the way it was structured is one day of the week, the father had open house, and that's when you made an appointment to come in and talk to the father. So if you wanted to start a new business, or you wanted to get married, or you wanted to do something, you went in and you got permission from the father, and then the father was also required to give you the means to do what he agreed to do. So if you can understand that context, father really meant a little bit different 2,000 years ago. And he very clearly said there's an energy. Now, the idea is there's an energy for good in the universe. And that energy for good is what he was calling the Father. So all around us, everywhere present, in the ethers, if you will, is an energy for good. Now, I'm going to pick this up. Our modern day scientists have identified that there is an energy in the universe that they can't describe. They have all kinds of names for it. We're not going to go into that. But there's this energy that permeates everything. And it's that energy that we call God, which is an energy for good. Now, what's interesting about that energy is the term Father really defines what it's like, because it's there to take care of us. I've been really looking at this whole thing this week. And the Father within, he doeth the work, is what Jesus said. He also said it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And what's the metaphor of the kingdom? Everything we hope for. Valerie was talking about it in our meditation. Love, hope, abundance, peace, all those characteristics that we're looking for, including sustenance, which means food, and abundance, and a happy life. That's part of that energy that's there. The example that I heard years ago, and a speaker, I forget who it was, here's the example of, could you imagine a father standing in line at an ice cream shop? Everybody got that picture? And there's a little one, 4 or 5 years old, with their nose above the counter looking at the ice cream. Okay? And they're all anticipating because they're in line. They see these scoops of ice cream going into that cone, and they can't wait to get there. And the father's there right behind them, supporting them. So can you imagine the delight, the anticipation, and the excitement about a young child getting ready to get a scoop of ice cream on a cone? Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I can sure remember that idea. I have to stay away from it now. But the idea behind that is the anticipation of something good. Now, could you imagine a father letting a child go through all that, and then when they get the cone in their hand, knocking it out of their hand? You can't even bring that in. So when it says the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, do we believe it? And so we're talking about an energy for good that's in the universe, and the question is, how do we get in touch with it? How do we vibrate with it? How do we tune into the frequency? Now, this week, In the article, I was thinking about how do you describe that idea of tuning into the right frequency? And it's like a radio. It's a perfect example of a radio or a TV. And we don't like the music that's on, right? So we say, radio, stop that terrible music. Now, is the radio going to listen? Hey, for it might, but so, you know, Alexa, yeah. But anyway, let's stay with that metaphor. And the metaphor is that radio is not going to change until you use the language or the circumstance to change the frequency. So you have to talk or work in the language or the kinesthetics of that entity. So you can't change. And if it's on the wrong frequency, it might squeal at you, okay? Or it might play something you really don't want to hear. So the question is, how do you find something you really want to hear? You take the dial and you tune it until you find what you want. Okay, now here's the issue. There's an energy for good in the universe. Law of attraction says that everything I vibrate in, I attract to me. Everybody there? I'm going to say it again. Law of attraction says it's pretty well proven that what I vibrate at, the frequency that I maintain, is what I attract into my life. And there's an energy around me, everywhere present, under all conditions, under all circumstances, it's always there, that my master teacher, Jesus, told me I can tune into. Kingdom of heaven is within. So he was using metaphors for those people 2,000 years ago who were mostly illiterate, and they didn't know how to read and write, so he had to explain things in a very simple way, in their language. And what he was, I believe, teaching, the gospel is, you ready? The gospel of the kingdom is, tune into the God frequency. Because what I'm hearing is there's a master frequency that takes care of us. Now, this week, Dee and Kat and folks are doing the class Barbara's on Tuesday night, and it's a great prosperity class, so if you get a chance, you need to be there. So I went into Charles Fillmore's prosperity book, and it's very interesting what he says, it really is. Anybody agree everybody's looking for prosperity? Everybody's looking for the answer? So maybe the answer is really simple. So here's what Charles Fillmore says right in the beginning. This is in the introduction. What we need to realize above all else that God has provided for the most minute needs of our daily life, and if we lack anything, it is because we have not used our mind in making the right contact, the right contact, the right contact, the right frequency with the supermind, the master mind, and it automatically flows from it. So there's an energy for good in the universe. Everybody there? That was the basics of science of mind years ago. There's an energy for good in the universe. Now, some people teach and think there's an energy for evil also. However, I don't believe that because it's like light. In other words, there isn't light and dark. All there is the energy we call light, and darkness is the absence of light. Everybody there? So that if we either tuned into the frequency for good, God, or we're not tuned into that frequency, so we are in the absence of God. That's a big thing to get and understand that I am a transmitter and a receiver of energies. As I tune myself to the frequencies of the master frequency, everything I need is provided for me in a way that's simple and easy. And if I'm not tuned in, then I have to pick up what everybody else is thinking, which I don't want to. So do you get that? Very simple. Now, there's more stuff here. Charles Fillmore also says, the spiritual substance from which comes all visible wealth is never depleted. In other words, there's an abundance. Okay, there's all kinds of energy around us that we are not tuned into. So it is right with you all the time and responds to your faith in it. Your faith in it. Shall I say it again? Your faith in it. Do you really believe it's there? And your demand on it. It is not affected by our ignorant talk of hard times. Shall I say that again? It is
Yeah.
not affected by our ignorant talk of hard times, or poor health, or a political upset, whatever we want to talk about, it's not affected by that. It's only affected by its language. So, and it says, though we are affected because our thoughts and words govern our demonstration, the unfailing resource is always ready to give. It has no choice in the matter. It must give, for that is its nature. Now here's the key. Here's how to tune to the frequency. It says, the unfailing resource is always ready to give. Okay? Pour your living words of faith into the omnipresent substance. So what that means is speak words of love, choice, abundance, peace, health. And the other side of that is, and I don't like to use it, I use the word don't, use words of discouragement, hate, anger, revenge. So you're tuning your energies, your subtle energies, into a master energy by creating love. And Valerie used that in the meditation that we heard earlier. So that the language of God is love. Now, what does that mean? What that means is, if I'm going to think God, I'm thinking love. And I'm looking for ways to appreciate people and love people, rather than ways to criticize, condemn, and complain. And that's what's messing up our society right now, in my opinion. Okay? It's really interesting. Turn the great energy of your thinking toward plenty ideas, and you will have plenty regardless of what people about you are saying or doing. So the kingdom of heaven is within. What is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is everything you've been looking for. But how do I access the kingdom of heaven? I access it not through a dial, but I have to use the master energy's key words, or key energy, which is love, which I have to speak, I have to think. In today's world, we're taught that. Get angry, to hate, even watching TV, the violence on TV, it's all fostering what we don't want. And the problem is, it's so subtle, we're not aware we get caught into it. Anybody ever wake up and wonder, why am I thinking that? Because the world traps us and gets us into that conversation. I was looking at what we said. For those of you out in TV land, it's an interesting idea of what we speak here. We open the service with an invocation. This was written by Charles Fillmore way back in the beginning of Unity. And I'd like to repeat it, because I want, what we're doing is creating an intention of tuning the dial through master energy. It says, we are now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of light, love, and wisdom. So sitting right now, there's an energy all around each one of us, which we call God, which is the master energy. It says the pure being. So this is way back to the beginning of that each one of us is. And then we acknowledge your presence. Because one of the things we have to do is accept that understanding. In other words, if we hold it out there and don't believe it, then it doesn't work for us. The only way it works for us is if we accept it. So this is saying we acknowledge your presence and your power. In your divine wisdom, now erase our mortal limitations. So the limitations that I've created within myself have come from the mortal world, the physical world, with people telling me I can't do that. Or people telling me, well, I'm older than I need to be, or whatever story people make up. Those are the things that I learned to live with, which aren't true. So it's saying, in your divine wisdom, now erase our mortal limitation. And from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation. That means bring into my life our world according to your perfect law. So what we're asking for is God's law in our lives. And anybody agree maybe God has a better thing figured out for us than we do? Okay? So it's called letting go and letting God, and knowing that all there is God. So it's a very, very definite tuning of the dial by what I'm thinking and by what I'm feeling and what I'm speaking. So the question becomes is, Where am I tuned into? What's going on? What's happening? There's also another, we sang this song, and I'm going to read this. The words we sang to earlier were, and I've got my glasses, and I am reading better. It is in every one of us. This is the song we sang. I want you to hear the words. It's in every one of us to be wise. So automatically within you is an innate knowledge of what to do under all situations. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. So find your heart, find that place within you, which is the Christ, and open up your spiritual eyes. Then it says we can all know everything. So there's an infinity. God by definition is all knowledge. One part of it, all awareness, all power. But all knowledge is in God, and that knowledge is available to us. Course of Love very clearly says the time for learning is ended, the time for knowing is now. And that time for knowing is what we already know within. And it goes on and says, without ever knowing how. So we all know everything without knowing how. So you have access to all that the universe is when we let go and tune the dial into the Master Christ Spirit. And it says it's in every one of us here and now. And that's the whole idea about what we're talking about today. So Jesus, and you see, a lot of people forget that Jesus was an itinerant preacher. Matthew 9. And it says in Matthew 9:35, and Jesus traveled in all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness. So teaching the gospel of the kingdom. What were we just talking about? Folks, we're talking about the gospel of the kingdom. And the kingdom of heaven is where? It's already there with us. And that was his simple message. And we have complicated the whole thing. So here was a man, advanced, whatever you want to call him, Son of God, Son of Man, but he called himself the Son of Man. But he was trying to tell us the kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. All we have to do is learn to know how to tune into the kingdom, which is loving words, loving ideas, loving feelings. So rather than complain, condemn, and criticize, do you see how that eats away? So, we're driven. It's like sometimes somebody will say something on TV and I say, that's a lie. Who am I? And it's like, I love you. Okay? Because I don't know what it is. The only thing I know is my reaction to it. And the problem is, where did my reaction come from? It came from my learning in this world. My knowing is, all there is God. There isn't anything else. And the kingdom of heaven is within me and the person I'm criticizing. So if I'm going to live in the kingdom of heaven, then I need to start speaking words from the kingdom of heaven. And I want to end with this. I wasn't going to do this, but I will. See, what blows me sometimes is when I take this out, the Bible out, and read it. It's so simple. And the message is over and over and over again. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And this is Luke. And it's Luke 12:29. So do not be anxious about what you will eat or what you will drink. Is that valuable today? Probably more valuable today than it was 2,000 years ago. And then it goes on and says, and let not your mind be disturbed by these things. So that means keep your mind quiet. Keep your mind loving. For worldly people seek after all these things. And your Father, that energy for good that's in the universe, knows that you need these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God, which is within you, and all these things shall be added unto you. And then it ends, do not be afraid, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's the gospel of the kingdom right there. And here we are. I'm going to be real open with you. I've had a few people start telling me, you know, we need to do something about raising money for our property down there. And we, you know, here's the key. You ready? We either believe it or we don't. And I'm bringing that up because it's the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It's us that lose the faith. So I'm asking you to eliminate doubt. I'm asking you to really depend upon the Father and make that shift into believing that I and the Father are one, which is Jesus' famous quote. I said it. Thank you. I love you dearly. The kingdom of heaven is with each one of you. And as we get more and more aware of that kingdom, it takes time. Great things happen for us. So thank you. I love you. Thank you.